further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for this event, Legally Green. Our two speakers are Kathy Blanchard from BB&T and Stephen Hobbie Anderson, sorry.
Andrew. I'm Hobbie, she's Kathy.
Hobbie Andrews from I know his name wrong. Vandeventer Black. So I asked them how they wanted me to introduce them today, and they told me they're snake oil salesman and insurance geek. So I think we're in for a treat, but I'll let them introduce themselves a little more.
Thanks,
Thank you.
This is great. I wasn't expecting this many people here, so I'll probably walk in. I am Kathy Blanchard, and I have to apologize. I just sent around just a few pieces of paper, and I was telling Kathy I felt bad last night. Because as I was printing them, I thought, not only am I printing paper, I'm not using recycled paper, and I didn't do double-sided. So, I've just met all those bad things. But as kind of finishing up the week of their GreenWeek, it's great to be able to kind of end on this note as you've kind of looked at a lot of things. Hobbie will be going through a lot of the legal issues that are emerging, are kind of coming through, but on the insurance side, we're still developing as well. So from looking at what's covered, what's not covered, what are you held to, that is still continuing to expand. So as I kind of set the foundation for really where on, especially on the design side, we make hiccups. On the second page of that handout I gave you, I just wanted you to see, even on a traditional project, where the hiccups occur, and just a very simple explanation to this. One of the main insurance companies that writes Design Professional is XL, and they do a lot of surveys and a lot of capturing data to see where claims come from regarding design professionals, all disciplines, all across the country. And when they did this original survey, they looked at 13,000 claims. And today, they still look at some of those claims as they've looked at it, and over $1 billion with a B has been paid out on those files. So they feel like the sample that they continue to look at is extremely good in their minds. And when they looked at that, you can see the 4 categories, and you can see how it changed from when they originally did the report in 2001 to what changed in 2009. And as we go through this pretty quick thing, we're just here a little bit together today, but as we're going through the topics, you're going to hear us continue to talk about contracts, how you're negotiating your terms, how you're looking at clients, who you're working with, what kind of expectations do our owners have, what kind of expectations are we bringing to a project. Having the green, the sustainability issue now come into play, that is changing. And are you having those discussions? Because it's impacting the design community on what comes back as dissatisfaction, not comfortable with what happened at the end, and that could mean liability and risk to the firm. So those things are still a very big kind of red flag for us to watch, as well as the project team capabilities, understanding the people that are working on the project, from your contractors to the prime to your sub-consultants, and bringing your owner into that as well, having the right people on the right project at the right time. And then obviously our big nugget that we always have to capture is communication. So as we go through this and kind of looking at where this is all developing, these 4 changes, these 4 topics are really not changing. And as a design community, these are where we really need to focus and try to minimize the liability that comes to us. So I know that when we originally looked at this, Hobbie's going to look at the kind of just trends within the legal environment on what's happening. He'll talk about the case law and kind of what's been developed, what's not been developed. And then I'll kind of come back around and talk to you about really what's happening differently on insurance and how the insurance policies are changing to try to put their arms around the green environment. Good with that?
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Kathy, my name is Hobbie Andrews. I'm an attorney with Vandeventer Black. I work down in my firm's Richmond office. I've been a construction lawyer working in the construction field, representing primarily design professionals, architects and engineers, but also contractors, developers, thank you, and others in the construction field for the better part of the last 30 years. I began as an engineer. I wasn't a very good engineer and thought I'd better do something that I could make a living at. Went back to school, and I've been working, as I said, in the construction field for quite some time. We were asked today to talk about LEED and green design and some of the new issues that are coming up. What are some of the risks that are coming out of green design? How many of you are LEED certified? How many of the folks here are LEED certified? Okay. The better part of the crew, I'll glance through some of the early issues, and I would like you to think about green design and LEED from this perspective. I want you to take a few steps down on the food chain, and I want you to pretend like you're slithering around on your belly like most other lawyers, and are looking for quirks and issues and things where you can hang your hat, expectations that you might develop because someone is LEED certified, or representations they make about a LEED certified project, particularly in terms of the utility of a building, life cycle costs of a building. What promises are we making? When we make these promises, what do we think that we're going to be able to deliver? So think about the LEED and the risks that come from LEED engineering and green design really are no different from any of the risks that contractors or design professionals or owners or developers face traditionally. We have the same risks, we're just applying them to some slightly new and different criteria. There's nothing particularly different about green design or LEED design other than this. It's now been codified to a degree, and we now have parameters that help us really develop and appreciate what LEED design is. There are criteria that have been established, and essentially they create benchmarks. Lawyers love benchmarks. Lawyers love taking a look at what the target is and then trying to determine whether or not someone satisfied their targeted objectives. Did they do all the things that they were supposed to do? Now, green design, LEED engineering, as I mentioned, is sort of a codification of some rather simple principles. We want to make sure we have an environmentally friendly interior to a building. We want to have sustainability. We want energy conservation. We want to make sure that we are good stewards of energy. With respect to water, we want to make sure we do a good job with water and water management. We have these new criteria that are not new in the sense that we haven't been mindful of these in the past. It's just that now they are targeted criteria. They're things that we're going to focus on when we go after green design, either as a developer, as an owner, as a contractor, or as a design professional. Now, with respect to LEED and why it was created, it was essentially to define a sense of parameters. We had folks out there selling themselves as green-minded and interested in the ecology and so forth and so on without an established set of criteria. A big part of LEED was to try and have a centralized appreciation of what it means. What does it mean, green design? What does it mean when we're trying to be environmentally conscious? It really was developed so that there would be a codified set of criteria for these things and some standards that we would be mindful of. One of the big concerns with LEED and green design are owner expectations. Think about it from an owner's perspective. If we are LEED certified, we're a design professional, and we're holding ourselves out as expert in these areas, owners have an expectation that they're going to have a better interior environment, that their building is going to be more cost effective to run, that there's going to be great utility from them, that LEED certification and working with LEED certified professionals sort of implies a heightened standard, a greater development of architectural skill if you are a LEED certified individual. Now, this is one of the issues that's very near and dear to Kathy and should be very near and dear to every design professional in the room and those who work with design professionals, is what the professional liability insurance covers. Professional liability insurance covers damages to the extent arising from the negligent performance of your professional services. The negligent performance of your professional services. If you, by contract, agree to an elevated standard, I'm going to provide the highest services. You may just have negated your professional liability coverage because you have no coverage if you agree by contract to a higher standard. You're covered by negligence. One of the concerns, remember I want you to put on your slithering on the belly hat here. One of the concerns is that folks who are LEED certified might be holding themselves out to delivering a higher standard. Now, I don't want to send anyone scurrying into the woods. There's a reason for LEED certification. It is a very necessary component of design. It is a very practical component and needed component of design. There is a concern, though, in marketing oneself or marketing one's firm if you're claiming that you are expert in a given area, or if on a contract you assure people that you are going to achieve some higher standard, you're opening yourselves up to attack from someone who doesn't believe you've satisfied that elevated criteria. Now, what are some of these increased risks and exposure, and what form do they take? I spoke a moment ago about insurance coverage and the standard of care. The standard of care, the law in every state except South Carolina, they've got to work. The law in every state with respect to design professionals is that they must perform reasonably. There is an understanding and appreciation in every state in the country, except South Carolina, that there will be an acceptable level, a modest level of errors and omissions in design. They can't, plans and specifications are never perfect. They will always require clarification. We will always find that we have conflicts. We'll always find a dimension on the structural plan that's inconsistent with one on the architectural plan. That in and of itself doesn't mean there is deficient performance. We are allowed this standard of care issue, a concern with respect to lead design. If we promise, let me give you this example. If by contract we agree as an architect to deliver a gold certified building, a gold certified design, and we can't do that. Those of you who have worked with LEED understand it's a point system. You get so many points for different elements of design. Roofs are very, very important. Where you put the bike rack, what kind of mats you have outside the door. It's okay, a design professional can deliver something with all the points necessary, but what if what the design professional delivers is not appealing to the owner? I don't like that window. I don't want vegetation on my roof. I don't like those windows. I don't want the bike rack here. I want it there. If the owner makes some of these decisions, he may preclude the effort of the design professional to deliver the building with the certification required. So we need to be mindful of these types of things. As a design professional, quite frankly, all we can really do and all we should do when we enter into our contracts is endeavor to provide that certification, because we can't make up the owner's mind for him. We can deliver you a design or design elements that will achieve the level of certification you want. But Mr. Owner, if you don't like where I put the bike rack or the windows I've selected or the roof shading or this or that, we might lose points and we might not make that certification. So there are things to be mindful of with respect to some of these certifications. Fraud and misrepresentation. These are wonderful things, and quite a few of us here I know have appreciated scenarios like this. It comes up very often in the context of condominium projects. Many of us have seen brochures, especially for some high-end properties where it's maintenance-free living. We are ecologically friendly. We use all recomposed material. A lot of lofty statements, goals, and aspirations of what we've done with this building. Someone buys the unit, they're unhappy with the unit, and they're looking for a way to get out of the unit or to get a price reduction, and they say, wait a minute, I was induced to buy this property by all these glorious things you showed me in this marketing literature. And it's not true. It isn't true. My electric bill is not half of what it used to be. I used to have a 2,400 square foot unit. I have a 2,400 square foot unit here, and my bill is exactly the same. Where are the savings from this remarkably ecologically friendly the new thing with all these whiz-bang MEP systems? Where is it? Something like that is considered fraud in the inducement or negligent misrepresentation and can be the basis of a claim. Now, much of what I'm telling you is in the context of employing old and traditional claims to something that is rather new. We'll get into a couple projects here in just a little bit. There's very little case law on any of this stuff. And that's for a couple reasons that we'll talk about in a moment, not the least of which is LEED, and LEED design is relatively new. It takes a while for things to work in the court system. Construction contracts oftentimes have arbitration provisions. Arbitration is a private proceeding, and the results generally aren't published. And usually, most claims settle. So we know what the claims are, but we don't know what the result is or what any court found. So we'll keep that in mind as we move through. The AIA has weighed in with respect to green design. And they have sort of a lofty goal and expectation in the new B101, in the 2007 B101, which is the standard form owner-architect agreement. There is an expectation, a requirement on the part of the architect to make representations to the owner with respect to green design. And the concern that I have in looking at this, remember, we're slithering around, we're looking for crevices, we're looking for potential claims. It would be very easy for an owner after the fact to take a look at the AIA standard form language now and say, hey, wait a minute, there is a better, cheaper, more efficient way of doing something that you didn't bring to the table. I have a concern of the rather open-ended language in the 2007 V101, and I believe in order to make it more accurate, in order to better define the expectations between the parties, we need to squeeze that a little bit into something more tangible.